At the Academy for Offensive Mages, everyone agrees on one thing: there's no place for healers here. But our MC thinks differently. Will is the best healer around, yet he still enrolls in this academy. Everyone expects him to fail miserably. One teacher even decides to prove it by setting up a mock battle. The moment the fight starts, the teacher uses earth magic to trap Will, but Will easily dodges every attack, boosting his speed with healing magic. The teacher almost catches him in an earth trap, but Will dodges again. Then he goes on the offensive. He closes the distance and strikes with his dagger. Of course, the attack doesn't work. The teacher covers himself in impenetrable earth armor, confident that a weak healer with no offensive magic can't touch him, but Will knows how to deal with it. In this world, most mages limit their power because their bodies can't handle their full strength. Pushing past that limit causes the body to break down. But if Will removes that limiter, he can unleash massive power at the cost of destroying his own body. And that's absolutely fine with him. He's a healer anyway. Will rushes forward with a supercharged fist. His arms shatter as he smashes straight through the teacher's earth armor. The teacher doesn't even have time to react. He's knocked out instantly. So why is a healer in this academy? Because last time, everyone else was useless, and Will died because of it. Here's what happened back then. You would think that being good at a job would earn you the respect you deserve from your seniors, right? Well, that's not the case with our boy. He literally gets stabbed by his superior for doing an exceptional job. Will is an ordinary young man with an extraordinary healing ability, a one-of-a-kind power that only he possesses in the entire world. He could literally heal even the ghastliest injuries like it was child's play. Lost your arm? No big deal. Bro can erect it back up from the stump within seconds. Currently, he is serving alongside the last remaining soldiers on the front lines, who are fighting against a demonic army led by demon lords, the very forces responsible for ravaging the kingdom of Granbald. The soldiers are fighting tooth and nail, trying their absolute best to repel the demonic forces which have destroyed the rest of the world already. As for our boy, he has no battle experience, so he is tasked with healing the injured, essentially pulling them back from the verge of death. But let's be real, these mortals don't stand a chance against terrifying creatures that have emerged from the depths of hell itself. That's why the soldiers keep returning with missing limbs, and our boy continues to heal them diligently. Eventually, however, the soldiers grow weary of fighting over and over, only to get injured again. They have accepted their cruel reality. They are cooked. They would rather die on the battlefield and get over this shit already. That's exactly the reason our boy was stabbed by his captain. The captain believes that Will doesn't understand the pain and horror the soldiers endure every time they are forced to return to the battlefield. Ultimately, the hopeless soldiers abandon the defensive line, allowing the giant monsters to begin ravaging the remnants of the kingdom. Will watches helplessly as everyone dies before his very eyes, watching his home fall apart. Gazing up at that massive dragon, he finally realizes the kind of horror those soldiers had been living through. It was in that moment that his greatest strength became his biggest regret. If only he had what it took to fight on the battlefield, he could have ensured the survival of the people around him. With a burning desire to defend his kingdom with his own two hands, Bro grabs a literal pebble from the ground and begins charging at the dragon. Of course, his ridiculous attempt to fight a mighty dragon with a mere stone results in his demise. However, predictably, he wakes up almost 5 years in the past, right before he earned the title of the world's greatest healer, a title he later came to resent. Determined not to repeat his past regrets, he decides to enroll in an academy that specializes in offensive magic rather than healing. And his first pick for the institute is Schwartz Academy, a school dedicated solely to combat arts. In this world, the arts of healing and the art of using offensive magic can't coexist side by side, forcing the young mages to opt for one profession only. However, Will decides to break this unspoken rule and achieve what he failed in his past life. He plans to wield his past knowledge in an effort to nurture himself in a way that not only he knows how to heal, but also knows how to fight by himself. To get the ball rolling, he must enroll in one of the most prestigious academies this world has to offer, the Schwartz Academia. It's believed that this academy can nurture young talent into first-class offensive magic-wielding mages. Not to mention, the most talented battle mage of Will's past life was also a graduate of this academy. However, there is a problem. Will is a healing mage, so getting into Schwartz wouldn't be straightforward. Usually, nobles spend a fortune to have their dim-witted offspring enrolled in this academy, but our boy is currently broke. Even if he starts earning his bread and butter using his healing skills, he won't be able to save enough before the enrollment deadline arrives. As he ponders his predicament, his sister enters the room. Seeing her alive causes his eyes to well up with tears. Noticing his reaction, she assumes his stomach must be aching for him to tear up like that. He quickly wipes off the moisture and bluffs, claiming something just irritated his eye. Internally, however, he can barely contain the joy of seeing his sister alive. He vows to protect her this time from the catastrophe that consumed her life previously. And not just her, he's going to make sure to protect everyone he failed to save before. Suddenly his mind sparks with an idea. He seems to have figured out his next step forward. But before we proceed, Here is a little context about the Magic Academy Federation. It's an organization that oversees all magic academies residing in the kingdom, responsible for dishing out regulations and curriculum for all magical education. At this time, the chairman of the Federation is also the principal of Schwartz Academy. But for some reason, the chairman has completely stopped paying attention to the Federation. Soon, the reason became apparent. It was due to his sick granddaughter, Marie. By the way, this doting grandpa's name is Arnulum Goldgran, the chairman of the Magic Academy Federation and principal of Schwartz Academy. The old man promised his girl that he would find a capable healing magician who could set her free from her misery. However, in our boy's previous life, his granddaughter passed away because the chairman failed to find a capable magician in time. That's exactly why my guy sneaks right into the chairman's granddaughter's room. Conveniently enough, our boy doesn't even have to introduce himself to the chairman, who is already present there. The old man already knows about this scholarship student who hails from Heilig. After all, Will is renowned throughout the kingdom for the exceptional talent he possesses in healing magic. This is exactly why the chairman finds it unfitting for someone of our boy's caliber to be sneaking around like a thief. Internally, Will admits he's right. Perhaps if it weren't for his past life experience, he wouldn't have dared to infiltrate someone's personal space. But then again, formalities are a luxury they can't afford right now. He had to get right in, for only he can heal her. Of course, the old man knows that nothing comes without a price, and he wants this young gun to be clear about his intentions. Will insists that time is of the essence. Her treatment takes precedence over negotiations. Eventually, the old man gives the permission our boy needs. He sits by the bedside ready to cure her illness. But the old man's intense gaze catches his attention, staring down into our boy's soul. The chairman is practically broadcasting that one wrong move, and our boy is done for. So, Will takes a deep breath, ready not to mess up, and starts his healing mojo. While he is dishing out this healing magic, he realizes that his mana pool has shrunk compared to his past life. But what matters more is the perfect execution of the healing magic formulas, which thankfully he remembers very clearly. After a while, the granddaughter finally opens her eyes. The first thing she notices is the charming prince who rescued her from a life-or-death situation. She gets totally flustered and rolls over to the other side in embarrassment. Meanwhile, Grandpa is still in disbelief that his grandchild has actually returned from a comatose state. The girl affirms her return. She even claims that she hasn't felt this good in years. The doting grandpa's eyes mist up with tears of joy. The worries that had been weighing him down for so long have finally been lifted, and it's all thanks to our boy. A short time later, both men settle down in the living room. After expressing due gratitude, the old man is willing to grant any wish our boy harbors. Will assures him that he won't be demanding anything absurd. His wish is well within the chairman's power. At this point, it's common knowledge that there is no one next to Will when it comes to healing magic. He sits at the pinnacle, having no more room for growth. That's exactly why he wants to explore a different skill set. He wants to enroll in Schwartz Academy. Of course, the old man finds this absurd. For someone to abandon their natural aptitude to explore something entirely unfamiliar sounds unusual. But since the old man had already made his promise, he's going to honor it. He shakes hands with the young man, promising to keep his end of the bargain. Somewhere in the academy, a seemingly toxic teacher is reviewing our boy's enrollment profile. He finds the chairman's actions to be quite bold, enrolling a healing mage who has zero offensive skills into a combat school. Eventually, the day of the entrance ceremony arrives, and the new entrants gather in the academy's assembly hall. Up on the pedestal, the chairman is there to pitch and glaze his institute. Schwartz Academy is a fully residential school specializing in offensive magic with its own unique curriculum. Its vast campus houses multiple training grounds, and things only get better with the advanced research facilities and a massive library, making it stand out even more. Influential graduates are active even beyond the academy, making it possible to receive various forms of support from the kingdom. If I had to sum it up, there is no other institute that provides this kind of environment to study the intricacies of offensive magic. Let's not forget that our boy is just a mere healer enrolling in this academy, which has been unprecedented up until now. So, it goes without saying that his path ahead will be paved with thorns. But my guy is ready to face whatever lies ahead, as long as he becomes the offensive mage he desires to be. However, reality is often far from expectation. The first class after the entrance ceremony takes place, and Will can be seen sweating bullets. He is supposed to hit a target with a fire magic spell. Somehow, he manages to activate a fire spell, but it fizzles out as soon as it appears. And it's not the first time this has happened. To make matters worse, his teacher is a total piece of trash who tries to bully our boy by using his weakness as leverage. Will can only attend the class if he successfully manages to hit the dummy. Until he manages to achieve this, he is forced to continue his practice in the training grounds on the other side of the school building. Will insists that his teacher at least show him the ropes, or else he would never be able to learn it properly. Then again, it was clear from the start that this particular teacher has a hate boner for our boy. To him, wasting time teaching a healer isn't the best investment. Will begs him to at least allow him access to the library so that he can learn something from the theory. Once again, the bastard humiliates our boy for being a mere healer, claiming they have no literature that could be used by his kind. Taking advantage of the situation, a blonde douchebag strikes down the healer with devious magical backshots, forcing Will to collapse on the ground. The poor guy didn't even expect the sudden attack, but the bully thinks it's just more of a reason to take advantage of the healer for being so weak. He boasts the Academy's offensive rank status, so any softy healers like Will can get lost for daring to take admission. This is the first time I'm watching a teacher gang up on the student with the bully too. Both of them dog-walk Will as if he were the lowest trash in their eyes. That night, our boy appears exhausted by the bench. His efforts for learning offensive magic has so far ended in the gutter. He knew it would be a pain in the ass, simply because of the difference between healing and offensive magic. Both draw their own kind of energy source. Mana is the power of the mind, a mage's ultimate weapon, which he activates through formulas. Mana also moves according to the will of the caster. Using that mana for explosion or firepower gives you offensive magic. Healers, on the other hand, possess calm mana, but that's where the Schwartz Academy comes into play. They're the best at raising offensive mages, so there has to be a way for him to refine dynamic mana. Will strongly believes that he could manipulate his mana in a way that could convert static mana into dynamic mana. The biggest obstacle in his way? He can't even attend classes right now because the shitty teacher won't allow him. Will refuses to give up, hoping to encounter that one person who helped him in his previous life. Just because of her alone, his choice to have come to this academy may end up being worth the pain. Unfortunately, he can't continue blindly, so he thinks of other ways. But suddenly, a familiar voice confronts him for staying out late. When Will looks at this person's gorgeous appearance, he sees Veronica, an extremely competent warrior who fought alongside him. She was one of the highest class offensive mages he ever knew, and in the end, he had to grieve her loss in the tragic war. Luckily, she's alive in this regressed timeline, but before they could even talk, this woman whips out the same sword that can cut anything in half. This girl looks like a female Gojo with Sukuna's abilities. The fact that she's pointing her sword at him isn't exactly pleasant, but it turns out she's hunting down a suspicious student around campus, making her wonder if Will is that same troublesome student. Our boy quickly clarifies that he's absolutely not that guy, because on the off chance she swings at him, he's gonna need another isekai regression from Truck-kun again. She believes him, bringing him calm, and he asks to confirm if she's really Veronica. The woman feels offended that he addresses teachers so casually, bringing him shame and shock. He knew that she was older than him in his previous life, but not that much older. Turns out she's actually a prodigy who skipped grades and got promoted to a professor right away, which is totally unsurprising considering her god-tier talent. This is the opportunity that Will has been waiting for, the shooting star that could help him learn offensive magic at last. Will expresses interest in taking Veronica's class, knowing that she's his one last hope. He inquires about the enrollment procedure, but she immediately rejects him, stating that she doesn't have any classes initiated. Since she's a new teacher who previously got promoted from numerous classes, she has no idea of how things work here. For this year, Veronica's current position is to serve as an assistant instructor to handle certain questions. The plan was to use her youthful mind to connect with the students closer to her age, which would make her a great support for them. However, what bugs her is how no one dares to approach her for any kind of consultation. Well, our boy can exactly tell why. It's because this woman takes out her murder weapon at the slightest inconvenience. But from his point of view, this is just an excellent opportunity for him to exploit Veronica. He doesn't even have to take her classes, and can simply use her to teach him privately. So he asks her a question, knowing it's her job to answer. Being blunt right away, this man inquires how he should approach learning offensive magic as a healer. From his words, Veronica instantly realizes that he's not an ordinary student, having sensed his odd mana flow composition. She now remembers that this guy is the notorious freshman who joined the Schwartz Academy. In all her years, she even admits never seeing a regular healer trying to learn offensive magic. The good thing at Schwartz is that the Academy offers a method to cultivate something called dynamic mana. It's a foundation that our boy believes will serve him as the perfect start, and when Veronica confirms its existence, Will gets really excited, thinking that there's a shot. One small problem. This woman straight up tells him that his dumbass won't be able to learn offensive magic even with that method. This revelation genuinely astonishes our boy, especially when Veronica explains that he already has far too much static mana. This means that even if he fosters dynamic mana from the ground up, most of it will convert and dissolve into static mana anyway. And if he tried to cultivate dynamic mana using some other method, the mixing of two mana qualities will make it impossible for him to use any kind of offensive magic. Reality looks bleak. Bro went ahead and changed academies only to realize that there is literally no way for a regular healer to learn offensive magic. Will is starting to regret not receiving an instruction manual when Truck-kun regressed his ass. Well, he doesn't want to give up, even if it means becoming the Einstein of his generation to invent a new method. Thanking the assistant professor, he's about to leave, when suddenly Veronica stops him to finish her point. She continues from earlier, stating that while it's true that healers can't use offensive magic, there is one caveat that could allow a healer to become an offensive mage. The girl confused the shit out of his ass because even our boy can't deal with that logic. Veronica demonstrates her point by revealing her specially carved sword of iron, a weapon that can slash and defeat enemies. She then talks about the bench next to them, which is made of wood, capable of being used by sitting on it. In other words, the smooth-brain professor is saying water is wet and the floor is made out of floor. But here's the twist. She picks up the bench and explains that even if she used it to beat the living daylights out of someone, it would still be a weapon. Hilariously, Will is starting to wonder how this muscle mommy can even lift such a heavy bench with those noodle arms. Anyway, Veronica's approach is that even if something is made for a different purpose, one can use it however they like. To personalize her point, she demonstrates through her hand and proceeds to pat his face, causing this man to blush. This is a wet dream for most men, until she ends up flicking the shit out of his face, explaining how she used her hand for two purposes just now. She does end up hitting him way too hard, but anyway, the point remains the same. Same thing but different usage. Will's eyes finally open. He begins to wonder if he can use his healing magic as an offense. All this time, he never even entertained the idea. The very reason both factions of mages disagree with each other is because of the differences that lie in their own forms of mana. But in Veronica's eyes, this kid is different. She thinks that he's already taking a leap by enrolling into an offensive magic academy, and even his mana signifies that he's not purely a healer. This is an observation that not even Will himself took notice, making him wonder if this is one of the abilities given to him by Truck Kun. Pointing her blade at his neck, she orders him to become aware and ignite the aggressive passion within his soul. If he does that, he'll become unstoppable and obliterate anyone who stands in his way. The very next day arrives, with our boy reflecting on his teacher's conversation from yesterday. She used many different examples to demonstrate her point, and what really stuns him is why she doesn't seem to have any kind of scrutiny against regular healers. Then there's the fact that she could come up with a theory on the spot that made sense. Will is starting to think that she's using the same method herself, but his train of thought is interrupted by an instructor rudely calling him healer. Today's class is actually special, since there'll be a bunch of one-on-one battles going on. He's capable of participating alongside the others. Of course, whether he can use offensive magic or not is his own problem to deal with. The scumbag teacher has also finalized his pairings, and without a shadow of a doubt, this man paired our boy against Ulpus, the blonde douchebag from the other day. Our boy isn't looking forward to this match against Ulpus, because the kid is from a famous noble academy and has all the backing. He's a trust fund baby, but even more than that, he's actually a powerful offensive mage. Ulpus already assumes victory and trash talks our boy, wondering if he'll run back to mommy after getting destroyed. Our boy is trying his absolute hardest to try and not be rage-baited by this imbecile. Even though he's from the future and knows he's against a kid, it's still pissing him off. The good thing is that Will wants to test out Veronica's theory in action, so he shares interest in the fight. He asks for the professor's attention and refuses to forfeit. Instead, our boy's got a proposal, sharing how he doesn't have any talent for offensive magic at all, which would be a waste of time for this fight. So this raises the stakes and straight up declares that he'll drop out of Schwartz Academy if he loses this match. The professor is thrilled to hear those words, but the flip side is that if our boy wins, he would be permitted to take regular classes. It's an insulting proposal, but Ulpus is so arrogant that he laughs his ass off, stating how ridiculous the idea of a victory truly is. He even thinks Will is mega coping in his Delulu Island with no shot of winning. The instructor is fed up with them and accepts the proposal, instructing both contestants to take position. He gestures at the start of the match, which kicks off with Ulpus calmly activating offensive magic. He manifests a bunch of radiating daggers. This is his specialty called knife creation magic. Basically, bro is Walmart Gilgamesh with micro-penis swords for a weapon. Blasting all of those daggers in Will's direction, he spouts that there's no way for a shitty healer to defend himself. But our boy is out here doing the Buddha pose and shit, ready to activate his domain expansion. The moment he activates his technique, he's able to match the speed of the daggers and concisely dodge all of them. This is a technique called life manipulation, something we'll use to manipulate the very essence of living creatures near him, boosting their HP to the absolute limit. But that's not all. He could also use it as an attack from this same approach. Ulpus panics and calls it a shitty fluke, but our boy's aura farming in the same pose. He catches Walmart Gilgamesh's dagger, before slashing all the others with Shiru Emiya's swag. The weapons falter and have done 0 damage thus far. But our boy's just getting started, and with a single dagger, he intends to end this fight. The spectators can't fathom what just happened. A healer using an offensive attack just doesn't register in their brain. In reality, Will has been using healing magic as an attack, and never even used offensive magic. Ulpus is in a clinch, and trash talks how he was holding back the entire time. Apparently bro can increase the number of knives at his disposal, as if that's gonna make a difference. He rains down the golden projectiles upon the healer in anger, but our boy casually starts slashing down each and every dagger. By the end of his defense, they're all shattered to the ground. Ulpus still thinks he's a hotshot, so he increases the size of his micro-penis dagger, and damn, that angle looks a bit sus if you ask me. Anyway, Will understands that fighting Ulpus is a pain because of his talent and understanding of magic. To increase complexity and firepower, Ulpus forces his dagger to rotate, basically throwing a missile at our boy's direction. Bro borrowed Sukuna's fire arrow furnace technique only for Will to block that shit too. Ulpus can't steal any more techniques from other shows and just roars in frustration. Meanwhile, our boy thinks he should progressively increase his strength. The fierce projectile is deflected with ease, much to Ulpus's surprise. Before he can do anything else, Will teleports behind him using Goku's instant transmission, promising to heal him after this. Then he straight up goes for the kill, only for the instructor to butt in and cast an enormous earth wall between the two. The instructor believes the match is over, and tells both of them to step aside for the next pair. The defeat is truly humbling for the cocky noble, but Will is just happy he can attend regular classes from now on, much to the frustration of this bum instructor. Having wrapped up here, he bolts off, reflecting on his fight experience. At last, he has created his own version of offensive magic, and it was powerful enough to beat an excellent mage. All of it is thanks to Veronica's guidance. As for the loser douchebag, he is helped by the instructor. Ulpus makes a request to his teacher not to inform his father about this match. Both of them are D1 Reddit haters who just can't take the L. In the next scene, we find Will at the classroom. He can take classes here and refine his understanding of attack magic. The instructor enters the room and peeks a glance at Will before initiating class. So far, his classes have been basic. One homeroom teacher basically handles all the classes. Will is intrigued by the magical tool creation class the most, recalling a similar concept at the Healing Academy. Today's lesson is regarding the creation of ice bombs. The instructor will hand out materials for the students to assemble and process. Will recalls that he never really made weapons in his previous life, only recovery items. But in the offensive academy, it's expected of him to forge weapons for combat. The mana used for this purpose will obviously be dynamic mana, but when it comes to creation, the nature of mana doesn't matter much at all. That's why Will won't have any trouble even with his surplus of static mana, and when he takes a look at the materials, he finds ice golem fragments and powdered flame branches. Following the instructions, he mixes the fragment, but suddenly experiences a rapid change. Will ends up tossing the ice fragment through body enhancement, causing that little fragment to detonate and explode, leaving behind spikes of ice. Our boy is pretty impressed, but his little stunt over here is peak disrespect for his class. The instructor scolds him and straight up says he'll deduct points from Will's grade. The rest of the bullies laugh, Ulpus especially, which signals that he's scheming with the teacher. Will's next class is right around the corner on magical creatures. He gets a cute salamander, as the instructor emphasizes the low-tier students to listen closely. Our boy is a little uncomfortable with the close distance to a magical creature. This tiny murder machine blasts out a cannon of fire, causing Will to deflect. In reality, that's just something our boy imagined in his head, even drawing the instructor's attention, who takes away his trusty pot. Things are not looking good, and Will is starting to really get what's going on. The instructor is allowing him to partake in classes but actually torturing him in every class. This means he won't be able to learn, so he has to do something about his situation again. Watching him from afar is a peculiar student, who seems to understand the double standards at play here. The bullying continued without end. Will had to protect himself from not only the students, but also the instructor's ridiculous out-of-syllabus questions. His points were smushed to the ground, and even after the classes, he found heaps of trash just lying around in his room. When he tried to confront the supervisor for the issue, the supervisor punished him even more by taking away his dinner privileges. Bro's getting cooked left, right, and center. He collapses in his room, realizing that this academy is full of haters. Just when he made one positive step, he now has to face a shit ton of challenges to circumvent again. Will understands that his current rate of progress is doing wonders for him, and does not want to let these bullies bother him. The best thing is that he fought one of them and actually won the fight, therefore having absolute proof that he can become the attack mage he's always dreamed of. Focusing on the positive, Will recalls acquiring his textbook, so he can now review homework and study properly. The following day arrives, and to his absolute shock, there's no teacher or any soul to be around. The instructor usually arrives at this time, but there's only one student near him. It's almost like the news of the sudden schedule change wasn't made public to certain students. Annoyed, Will gets up to strike a conversation with the girl. He walks up to her, startling her with his approach. Our boy just wants to know if the classes got changed overnight, and it's definitely something related to that. The instructor hates certain students, and she's on that list too, so both of them are cooked. She thinks it's a good idea for two bullied loners to get along, and Will can sense her dread. So he offers her a joyful hand, offering to be her friend. The girl is stunned and bows her head with absolute respect for him. She's introduced as Erica Glenn, the first friend Will has formed at the new academy. She thinks it's totally normal for him to not have anyone by his side, considering he joined classes late and he's a healer. Erica highlights that people always talk about how pathetically weak healers are, stunning Will. She herself isn't one to gloat about friends despite being an offensive mage. Watching her personality, Will understands that the fierce discrimination against healers seems to be a culture of Schwartz Academy. It's true that offensive mages fight on the front lines, so they have every reason to despise healers staying at the back. Even in his previous life, Will found himself being established as a famous healer for the kingdom. He had credibility back then, but here at the Attack Academy, things are different. Will is going to be swallowed by the Academy's discrimination if he doesn't fight against it. Erica inquires about his intention behind coming to the Offensive Academy. Arranging his thoughts, Will responds that he refuses to accept his reality as a born healer and intends to join the front lines. His reason shakes her, but Will clarifies that he's got his personal reasons backing him. As for Erica's intentions, apparently she belongs to a small noble family in the countryside. With no sons born in her family, the parents thought their bloodline would end. Taking matters into her own hands, she thought becoming a powerful attack mage could help her become the head of the family by status alone. It's an understandable goal in Will's eyes, but Erica's problem is that she doesn't have a sliver of talent for magic. She also doesn't have friends and gets bullied in class too. Luckily, she's happy to have made a friend in our boy, calling him an underachiever who will comfort her even when her grades are low. Bro's getting destroyed everywhere, but she's just joking around. Anyway, he reminds her that Erica's expectations will be met very soon. Without explaining much else, Will takes her to a different classroom where the real class is being held. The two of them find their way to the real class, only for the predictable instructor to consider them late. Will apologies for not knowing about the sudden class change schedule, but this jackass has a stick up his ass and doesn't forgive them. To punish Will, he decides to whip him another question. This is bad news. Erica already knows that our boy hasn't taken most of the previous classes, which means he wouldn't know anything. Taking a look at the board, Will breaks down the problem in his head, while his teacher emphasizes that points will be deducted if he fails to score the correct answer. Ulpus ridicules Will further, knowing that he's at the verge of failing. But our boy is deep in concentration, so he takes the chalk and starts scribbling intensely. Every word catches the attention of the class. Even Ulpus thinks this is just a show-off attempt. In truth, Will figures out the correct configuration, illuminating the magic circle on the board. He floored everyone's expectations, shutting the whole room down, including his shitty instructor. The teacher is forced to admit that it's the right answer, stunning Ulpus and even Erica. There's just no way the new kid managed to decode the answer even after missing all his classes. Right after that annoying class, Erica immediately wanted to know how he managed to solve that question. Will explains that it was actually pretty easy to solve, as he learned it from the textbook. He'd already read the textbook, so he knew what to expect. What stuns her the most is that this man devoured the entire book in a single freaking night. Will only read it for the first time and ended up blitzing through the book, hailing it as one of the greatest books on offensive magic. There were fundamental and advanced applications mentioned. Everything was covered with intense detail. He could study all of it on his own, but without having some form of magical understanding, reading the text was a chore. The good thing about Will is that he was always good at theoretical studies, so he could manage without much discomfort. He learned all about offensive magic in a single night, reading it like it was a fictional novel. While he's amused, Erica is out here creeped out. The book he digested is the boogeyman of their academy, something that can't be translated without the teacher's guidance. She's starting to regret her initial assumption of calling him a failure, and realizes that she's the only bottom feeder around. The girl doesn't want him to ditch her in the lowest ranks, while our boy assures her that he's going to teach her anything that she finds trouble with. After all, they're besties from the same class. Erica beams up a smile, feeling glad to receive his help. The reality is that our boy came here to school for his goals, not to act buddy-buddy with the power of friendship. But since he's alone, he'll need Erica, so he tells her about a favor she needs to do for him. The upcoming class is the General Offensive Magic class, one he's never been able to pass, and the main reason he was never able to access the other classes. Erica thinks he should easily be able to do it now that he defeated Ulpus, but the reality is different. Will actually can't use General Offensive Magic like everyone else, but he does have an excellent idea. The setup requires Erica's help in order for him to succeed. In the next scene, the students are gathered in the training grounds again. When it comes to offensive magic, there are two branches of general and unique magic. General magic refers to spells with properly formulated spells, making it easily accessible for everyone through formulas. Contrasting their general use case, unique magic comes engraved from within a user, such as Ulpus's special knife creation magic. The Academy's curriculum includes classes for both kinds of offensive magic for students to refine. Of course, unique magic doesn't lead to a correct answer, so for someone like our boy, this is actually the easiest ticket for him to attend such classes and win. Unfortunately, he's stuck when it comes to learning general offensive magic, and his teacher knows this well. Taking full advantage of the healer, the instructor praises him for his theoretical skills and wonders how he'll do in the practicals. After all, Will is supposed to fail this class if he can't even use basic magic. The instructor emphasizes that the assignment is no different from all the previous attempts, with the objective of firing a shot at the target. Once more, he degrades Will by calling it an extremely basic task, which means if he fails to do something so fundamental to the academy, he won't be able to graduate. Collecting his thoughts, the instructor recalls how the boy applied healing magic in offensive maneuvers, and how healing magic improves the body's general stats. But it's different here, because Will can't use something like offensive magic. He just wants this kid to get lost and forfeit from his class. But our boy isn't going anywhere and smiles at the situation. The instructor is blown the fuck away when he sees Will's hand engulfed in flames. There's just no reason on earth why this kid is able to cast such magic. But don't be fooled, this is actually just a sneaky tactic being used by our protagonist. His entire strategy hinges upon Erica creating the fireball using her version of the general offense magic. Then he deployed the fireball inside the tail of the salamander. Next, Will carefully uses auto-healing to fan the flames, hiding them within his hand. Basically, he's doing what Gojo Satoru does with his reversed curse technique to sustain Limitless. It's infinite healing. But even then, Erica doubted his approach, questioning what kind of man she was dealing with, not knowing he was the greatest healer of mankind at some point. Anyway, he stopped healing magic right after popping open his hand, making it seem like he manifested a fireball from the palm of his hands. Next comes the easy part. He just shoots it down the target, bringing it down with a bullseye. The instructor? Bro is trembling like a leaf. His student has humbled him yet again. The illusion is so good that he's totally convinced that Will casted offensive magic. This earns an immediate passing grade, earning Erica's applause and total confusion from the spectators. Most of all, Ulpus is pissed. After class, he confronts the teacher for an answer. Neither of them has any idea what's going on. There's no logical way for Will to have learned general offense magic. Ulpus's ego is butthurt because of the loss he suffered, and now this healer is taking things too far. Bro is willing to go as far as complaining to his father to obliterate the class. Even the teacher is stunned by his forcefulness, while the proud noble walks away ordering the instructor to do whatever it takes to exterminate the healer from their class. The douchebag teacher is now caught in a pinch, because breaking the rules comes with a risk of being discovered. Unfortunately, he also spent a ton of time getting his job at the academy, so he can't lose it now. Weighing the risks, the instructor decides that it's better for him to gamble and get rid of the healer who is trying to mark his name on their academy. Bro is having a generational beef with a 15-year-old student, and ultimately decides to take matters into his own hands. After classes, in the training grounds, the instructor ends up summoning Will all alone. Bro threatens our boy, but Will takes it as a compliment, too dense to realize the situation he's in. The instructor shares that he wants to humble the kid's confidence, especially after he skipped many of the classes when he first came to the academy. It's not even our boy's fault because this dipshit teacher is the one who refused to let him take those classes to begin with. Will argues back, saying he's already gone through the material from his friends and self-studying, so there's nothing to worry about. But this teacher is being tyrannical in his approach and simply doesn't care, believing this new lesson is necessary for Will. The content is decided by him as the instructor, so here, they will be participating in a proper mock battle. It's pretty suspicious to Will that he's having to fight a teacher for no reason, and the instructor knows this is unfair, so he lets the boy off with a handicap. If Will can score even a single hit, he'll be considered the victor of this mini-exam. With this kind of leverage, the instructor expects the boy not to turn tail and take the fight seriously. Of course, this clown never even entertained the idea of losing. He's that confident in his abilities. As for our boy, he is lost in thought, piecing together the situation. The kid accepts the conditions of the duel, much to the appeal of the teacher. The fight begins immediately with the instructor using an earth spell from the ground. Luckily, Will has some knowledge of his teacher's fighting style. He knows this guy specializes in earth magic, so he dodges the first strike swiftly. But that same strike grows a dick and forces him to dodge again. Will is getting hammered by numerous hits, but he evades properly. The teacher mocks him for dodging non-stop, but Will's current problem is dealing with the annoying earth magic which can be spammed non-stop. Then there's the fact that his attack has a crap ton of range, making it completely different from Ulpus. At the same time, Bro's not finished yet, and finds himself going Ultra Instinct on each hit. Will narrows the distance down and dashes towards his teacher, who ignites more of his earth magic, carving a wall open from each side before jamming it shut, making a sandwich out of the boy. This move seems like the ultimate downfall, until the guy sees his student descending from the sky with a dagger in his hand. This is the only opportunity he has, so Will lands the dagger strike, smashing his teacher's head. Unfortunately, this man carved a durable armor, blocking the hit. The student forcibly avoids the instructor's next attack, creating distance again. This little snake calls his student pathetic and reveals his all-powerful ironclad armor. Even Will thinks that name is cringe as fudge, while his teacher mocks him for using an imitation of general offense magic. He talks down, berates and shuns the student's confidence for even entertaining the idea of becoming an attack mage. However, the humble student confidently reminds the instructor that healing magic allowed him to study the human body in immense detail. This way, he could understand that most humans held back their strength not to kill. Their very own bodies can't handle their full might, and exceeding that limit will cause their bodies to deteriorate. The instructor takes it as an insult, because Will is trying to lecture him acting high and mighty, But the kid's point is actually simple. If someone can remove the limiter of the human body, they can draw out enormous power at the cost of rupturing their body. But the good thing for Will is that he's a healer, so he's about to pull an Izuku Midoriya. He's fine with his arms ending up getting shattered in the process. The boy's determination stuns the instructor, as he calmly Chad walks up to his teacher, who still thinks his cringe armor won't have any effect. Deku prepares his Texas Smash. Oh shit, wait, wrong story again. His teacher screams as Will annihilates his armor with his fist. Bro not only breaks the armor, he leaves his face looking more battered than Jake Paul in his fight against Anthony Joshua. Will reminds the dear instructor not to decide a student's destiny, and feels warm remembering Veronica's guidance again. She's the only reason for helping him unlock such overwhelming strength from the healing magic he already has. Will knows he can become much stronger, but while he's lost in thought, the instructor sneaks and attacks him with another earth column. Luckily, he is able to dodge, but it isn't enough to quell this man's blood-boiling anger. Will wasn't expecting to be blindsided by that attack, especially when he already passed the condition of the test. The instructor spouts more bullshit, stating that there weren't any witnesses to confirm such a thing, which means technically a healing mage never even hit him. He refuses to acknowledge his defeat at the hands of a pesky healer, and floods more earth spells against our boy. Will is starting to get real tired of this man's I am the rules Seto Kaiba bullshit approach. But thanks to him already having removed his limiters, he can launch at rocket speeds and blitz past him again. The instructor couldn't even process Will's sudden advance, as the boy charges his heavy fist, ready to demolish him a second time. Not even his cringe armor will manifest timely to save him from this haymaker. But then, the punch stops. Right before caving his face in, the punch stopped. It's as if the flow of time itself is no more. Will's punch smashes his face, humiliating the instructor as he processes the heavy pain. This shameful and slow-ass punch is worse than suffering the last attack. He can't even run away this time, or scream to save his life. The scene is genuinely hilarious because this one punch is taking up like 50 panels. Finally, Will exerts actual force and sends this man flying, causing him to crash into the ground. All this time, the healer had been using another one of his healer tricks. He welcomes the instructor back to reality, explaining how only a moment passed in the real world. But don't worry, he's not like his teacher who doesn't explain shit and properly shares what went down. First, when Will connected his punch, he activated an illusion enhancement spell. This spell is supposed to heal people with weakened senses like eyesight, but recently our boy has been utilizing it in combat to increase his speed and reaction time. He can essentially activate it against an opponent, hyperstimulating their senses, making them believe 1 second is actually 100 seconds. This makes the attack seem way more painful, as it is brutal and torturous. Finally, Will puts on a nice little smile for his teacher and asks one last question, inquiring if he can pass the class now. Before the snobby instructor even responds, Bro grabs his shoulder, threateningly reminding him that he's going to erase every last inch of discrimination the teacher has for the healer. The same harmless healer is looking like a demon king right now, and emphasizes that his only goal is to enjoy his classes. Which means if this guy or his students ever interrupt him again, things will go very wrong for him. Will concludes his proposal with a bright smile, concluding their encounter. That evening, the instructor is seen striding around in panic, questioning the kind of monster he encountered. He used to believe that every healing mage was weak as shit and submissive to the orders of the frontline mages. But this guy is different. He's got top-tier combat skills and a murderous killing intent. Coincidentally, he ends up running into the blonde punk, who is curious to know about the outcome of the training session. Ulpus snickers, believing it ended up in our boy's demise, but then he gets silenced like a dog. The instructor is done with his nepo baby yapping, and urges the noble not to involve himself against Will. It's for the good of all of them, and it was their greatest misunderstanding to assume that Will was just a regular-ass healing mage. Ulpus is startled by advice and brings up the threat of his father again, but this time, the instructor is unafraid. He basically tells the blonde punk to go complain to his daddy all he wants, because in truth, if Ulpus had all of this influence, he could have easily eliminated the healer by now. The Omen family isn't walking around on Ulpus's commands, but it is absolutely certain that if they keep fiddling around with the new kid, he'll destroy them for good. Ulpus is left pissed off, unable to believe that the situation has degraded in this direction. After that phenomenal beatdown, a few days passed. Class has just ended. Will is chilling because he can just sense the blonde noble being cautious around him now. He doesn't pull any tricky moves anymore or make any comments. This way, our boy can finally focus on his classes, yet he's unsatisfied with his current state of things. Right now, his ultimate objective is to overturn the reality of humanity's destruction in the future. The only way to avoid a dark fate like that is to become stronger. Sure, his healing magic is helping him with body enhancement, but he's boxed himself with just basic strength attacks right now. Sensory enhancement is good for illusions too, but it's nothing compared to the versatile fighting style of offensive magic. Will understands that he needs to carve up a completely new fighting style to catch up. He explains this exact thought process to assistant Professor Veronica, seeking her guidance again. Will's approach needs refinement, but Veronica has one other thing to say first. He's hesitant to hear what she's going to say, but she actually ends up congratulating him for everything he's done so far. Thanks to his contributions, the teachers have been talking about the healer nonstop. A healer mage is keeping up with the top classes of the academy, and it's nothing to scoff at. While some other teachers are also looking hateful of his progress, which checks out. Interestingly, Veronica hasn't really revealed to anyone that she's the reason behind his progress. She also never had the chance to mention it among the teachers, because the others just disregard her for being special even at their ranks. Our boy is relieved because this way he won't deal with any trouble. It was her advice that got him this far, and he wouldn't want her to get in trouble because of it. The professor doesn't mind and admits that, actually, she's grateful to him. Like she said before, healing mages never even try to bring their theories to reality. She pulls out her sword again. Strangely, she likes doing that a lot, and challenges our boy to a duel. Will clearly didn't anticipate this move coming from Veronica, but she's genuinely curious to see where he stands at his level. It's the surest way to help him become stronger, but our boy's just not ready at all and panics like hell. The swordswoman emphasizes that the enemy won't wait and blitzes from her spot. She thunderously appears right in front of him to slash him down, something Will is able to deflect at the very last second. He can barely hold his weapon together against her heavy attacks, and she continues to overwhelm him with a flurry of slashes. Despite expending all of his boosts and reaction speed, he can't even keep up with her. The thing about Veronica is that she's more than fast. This woman is lightning incarnate. Her sword elegantly moves from one swing to another, which means in a battle of endurance, it's Will who will be the first to break. Enduring the heavy hits, Will understands that he's only got one shot to impress her with his limit-breaking speed. This way, he'll catch her off guard. Instilling his energy into his heel, our boy crackles ahead with thunderous ferocity of his own. The professor didn't expect this maneuver just like he predicted, and right when the blade is about to stab her face, she reacts point blank and counters the attack by literally slashing his weapon apart. The fight's over, and even with Will's best effort, he is no match for the elite warrior's skill. Veronica asserts her enthusiasm. She didn't believe he could pull a fast one on her like that. What she used back there was a magic sword to counter him. All this time, she figured he was a healing mage who could use offensive maneuvers. But this is different. The boy's current fighting skills rank near the top of the leaderboard, but Will doesn't find satisfaction in his progress like always. She seconds his ambition and determination to get stronger, and understands that enhancement isn't his final goal. Will admits that he's trying to remove the limiter of his body, but that won't be enough, as proven today in their fight. The professor makes another analogy, stating that a sword's purpose is beyond casual swinging. It can thrust and be thrown, and healing magic must have applications like that too. Unfortunately, Will has been brainstorming similar ideas but can't come up with anything. The gorgeous swordswoman explains that his shortcoming is actual combat experience. He lacks the intuition to formulate what it means to fight. In Veronica's view, experience trumps knowledge when applied correctly. Even in their present battle, Will noticed a little something that she used. Figuring out her advice, Will asks if he should conduct more mock battles against the professor. Veronica likes the approach, but recommends that he partake in a monster subjugation training mission. The boy is bewildered. At last he'll have an up-close experience of a life-and-death combat situation. He actually partook in the same competition across the three academies of Schwartz, Heilig, and Zilbern. All three academies boast offensive, defensive, and swordsman styles. Their students are supposed to execute subjugation requests. At Heilig Academy, the boy didn't participate in the mission itself, but this time he has the opportunity to take out nightmarish monsters and gain experience against the destruction to come. Will steals his resolve for his first ever subjugation mission. Veronica watches him with interest, reminding him of the participation conditions. The boy must prove his ability in the selection exam, and there's a rumor of a prodigy going about among the first years. Will's new goal is to score the top position among the selection process against his classmates. He asks about the details of the selection exam. The simple criteria is that the candidates will fight against each other. 100 people typically volunteer and demonstrate their skills, selecting the best of the best. Even our boy is starting to get fed up with the school's constant emphasis on fighting. Back at Heilig Healing Academy, a few volunteers stood up to join, which meant that anyone could partake in the mission. But this is a different format in Schwartz Academy, boasting a selection process. Will recalls the warm memories at the Healing Academy, wondering how his old master is holding up right now. Veronica goes back to talking about the prodigious student with an ability level far surpassing some of the instructors. This means that Will won't be getting that top spot easily, which makes him wonder if the assistant professor has personally met this student. Unfortunately, she has never had the chance to meet this guy, because he likes avoiding teachers acting like he's way better than them. He doesn't even come to ask her questions, but that's aside from the fact that she's intimidating. Anyway, Veronica promises Will that she'll assist with his training for the exam, something that brightens up his mood because she's the only chance he's got at getting better. We skip ahead to the day of the selection exam. Will walks into the arena, highlighting that time passed quickly since then. He feels more confident than ever, having finished all his preparations. As he's mingling around, a certain voice calls out his name. It's the chairman of the Magic Academy Alliance, Arnolum. The principal is happy to report that his grandchild has been receiving steady recovery ever since he healed her. The chairman even apologizes for not looking after the boy, even after he saved his grandchild's life. Will explains that while he did struggle at the Academy's challenges at first, he's completely blended in now without any trouble. In fact, he's even determined to score first place at the selection exam, a noble goal that impresses the chairman. Interrupting their conversation comes the party pooper, an instructor who smashes Will's words by calling them a joke. He thinks this pipsqueak is underestimating his class heavily, and by the way, Bode is also the field training supervisor for the event. Interestingly, Will has met this dude in his previous life. Bode was called the Violet Lightning, known for his incredible hero class results in the Great War. Unfortunately, these two never got along well, and even now it's happening the same. The brooding macho mage intimidates the healer by emphasizing how the world is full of fighting geniuses. Training is just a pebble in comparison. He openly shit-talks Will to his face, declaring that the kid's got no chance of winning as a healer. The boy doesn't respond, while the chairman recommends they settle their argument during the exam, not before it. The instructor nags that he's just educating the brat, and highlights that the real victor of this exam is going to be Sirius from his class. This young man is straight up a character copy pasted from Genshin Impact. Sirius Bluenote is the prodigy everyone hails with high expectations, and also the same man that our boy is destined to confront for first place in the selection exam. The competition is fierce, and the chairman is excited to see them just staring the other down. Without wasting time, the candidates enter the contestant arena, surrounded by a cheering crowd looking for an epic match. Will and Erica are in the second row at the front, with the healer expressing his shock to see her participation. Unfortunately, she's got to participate, or else she'll lose her allowance privileges at the academy. Even Ulpus is eyeing our boy down from afar, while the chairman officially congratulates the candidates for making it this far and hopes for the best mages to win. The first round is going to be a preliminary round, one that will eliminate most of the candidates, leaving only the best for proper selection. This means all of them are going to be fighting each other at the same time, 100 students against each other. The space is far too cramped for their fight, but no worries, because the chairman uses his personal domain expansion to cast them in an entirely different dimension. The students can't even fathom where they've been transported to, while the old geezer stands at the edge of space itself, dispersing them into different locations. Will is transported into a forest just behind the academy. With all of the students transported, the headmaster announces that all of them have been placed in random locations. The goal is to cooperate wisely and avoid overwhelming opponents. All starting positions are luck-based. Will is out here glazing at the chairman's incredible teleportation skill because this old fart just teleported them at the same time. Thus commences the start of the field training exam. First things first, our boy leaps off to a branch before activating the presence concealment spell. This way, he'll mask his presence and go stealth, playing it safe around other contestants. When he looks back, he actually finds 3 students squaring off each other. One of them uses a mighty earth golem which could pass for a Pokemon to be honest, while this other girl's got a big-ass fairy hammer. Both of them are so busy facing the other that they forget about the third attacker, a woman who freezes them in place. Will is impressed to see the range of skills other attack mages possess, and believes there's a lot he can learn from them, other than just wanting first place. He likes what he just saw and intends to rework it into his own skill set. The fight's over, and the last man standing is the golem dude. They're out here celebrating for winning an epic fight. Meanwhile, our boy comes along and pulls a psych bitch moment. Will grabs his head and activates consciousness blockade, knocking him out immediately. Think of it like a mini version of Infinite Void from Gojo again. With this ability, Will is able to manipulate his opponent's life force and force them to black out. But it's necessary for his grip to be firm, or else the move won't work properly. This is a technique he borrowed from Veronica during their training sessions. Lost in thought, Will barely notice an attack coming his way. He dodges a bunch of short daggers, and immediately remembers it's that same retarded dumbass again. This time the kid brought his friends too. Ulpus believes that he's just trying to pass this exam, just like every other student, but he's got the numbers advantage in a 3-against-1 situation here. Ulpus activates knife creation magic. One lackey coats his daggers in poison. The final lackey uses shadow clone magic to multiply them even further. With these poisoned blades, even a single graze could lead to our boy's demise. Blocking is straight up out of the question. Dozens of blades spring their way to Will, hunting him down. As they approach him, he entertains the idea of healing the poison with recovery magic. Dealing with so many of these daggers even with body enhancement seems like a pain in the ass. Cornered, he decides to pull a completely new move. A sudden barricade arrives in front of him, defending Will from the knives. Ulpus is astonished, as he watches the same rock golem now serving a new master. The neat trick about recovery magic is that it can be deployed on other living creatures. The rock golem here is capable of moving on its own using the caster's blood. Even though it's incapable of complex patterns, the healer can easily manipulate it using his spell called pseudo-life imbuement. The golem charges at the Skindiana Bones trio. First our bad boy whacks one dude's chest, then he sits on top of another guy, probably giving him permanent back pain. With the two of them finished, Ulpus is seen panicking. He's dead meat because our boy blitzes him like Minato Namikaze, grabbing his face and tapping him out to sleep. The fight's over, so Will returns to stealth mode, his golem taking the advance on the battlefield. Since his enhancement techniques limit him from close quarters combat, his best shot is using a golem to compensate for a glaring weakness. He can also safely observe everyone like this. Suddenly, a gigantic twister catches his attention. It's as if a natural disaster struck the forest. But no, this spiral of wind is a literal Kamehameha wave, one that our boy barely manages to escape. The attack literally scars the freaking earth, obliterating the golem as well as the rest of the students, even knocking down all the trees in the remaining area. In the distance, Will sees one man. It's Sirius, the prodigious student, and I'm not even kidding. Bro looks more of a main character than the dude we got. His abilities are terrifying at a glance. Will wonders if he should use a move to fight him, but suddenly, the match is forced to a close. The headmaster commemorates each candidate for their efforts, concluding the preliminary round. Only 4 remaining contestants will make it to the next phase. The real competition will be held in the arena, so until then, the chairman advises the students to rest as he activates transfer magic. While the transfer magic is kicking underway, Sirius, the very serious man, seriously glares with a serious expression at our serious protagonist. Will has to find the will to beat this guy in one day. Both of them vanish after that. Back at home, our nerd is busy doing homework, thinking of a strategy for the exam. Just outside his room, Ulpus and his gang of losers have arrived once more. They're already pissed off getting handed 50 Ls every time they challenge the healer. But Ulpus is a sore loser, a twat. He cares about the pride of his noble family and wants to uphold the Oman family's honor against a lowly healer. What worries him most is his father discovering about the whole situation. Still, his friends just don't have the heart to tag along. They ditch his ass and leave him to deal with his own mess. Ulpus panics and eventually boils with anger, declaring that he has a way to get rid of the healer even without using magic, all the while our boy is chilling in his room. Suddenly, Will hears a knock at a strange hour. He gets up to open the door and already senses a bad feeling. Obviously, it's Ulpus at the door, who pulls out the corny noble act and greets him warmly. Will is suspicious and doesn't buy his acting skills, but the Golden Noble is just here for a talk. He expresses his sheer hatred for healers, expressing how he's done a whole bunch of things to eliminate Will from the academy. Obviously, our boy pulled an Uno reverse in every situation and outplayed him back to back. But now, Ulpus has come with a personal message. His polite act drops as he orders the kid to leave the academy. Yeah, so much for that shitty acting performance. Will is genuinely starting to respect this man's hating game, like he just can't leave him alone for once. Ulpus boasts himself as a respectable member of a noble family, and doesn't like healers sitting around. Even his older brother was weak as a healer, people mocked him, and he'd just grin in front of them. Offensive mages are proud, and regular healers are pitifully pathetic. This is the dark reality for most teachings of noble families, a torturous system. Ulpus insists Will to leave through the power of talk no jutsu, but Will genuinely isn't going to be like, yeah bro, thanks let me quit, so he rejects him. The noble comes prepared for that and emphasizes that he knows about Will's family. Thanks to his servants and connections in the outside world, the noble discovered that Will has a sister. Both of them share a lovely bond together. With a single order, his servants could easily take out the boy's sister if he wanted. Now the scene is getting way more intense. Will's regular aloof demeanor drops and goes straight for this guy's neck before bitch slapping him into the ground. Next, he goes up from behind, pulling his arm in a position where it could easily shatter apart. Will reminds the dear noble that he already made up his mind, and despite Ulpus's whining like a dog, his arm goes crack, leaving him a whimpering mess. The noble is still hell-bent on revenge, stating that the academy won't forgive him for breaking his arm. But here's the neat trick, bro forgot that Will is actually a healer. It's all good again, which also means it can happily be cracked again. Crack goes a second time, leaving Ulpus devastated with roaring traumatic pain. Will heals it again, and this game continues. The noble pleads again, but it breaks again anyway. The cycle of breaking and healing goes on, with Will playfully stating that he sticks to his decisions strongly. Threatening his sister is a boundary this loser should never have crossed. Crack, crack, and crack. Relentless arm shattering until Ulpus's spirit is tormented apart. He now understands that this kid isn't a healer but modern Satan himself. Just like the reality check the instructor got, the noble is made painfully clear he can't fuck around with him again. That night, Will sends the noble back with happy regards, as if nothing even happened. Our boy doesn't even feel a single ounce of regret, even experiencing joy before sleeping. The following day, the main tournament is underway. People in the arena are awaiting for this match with keen interest. The 4 who cleared round 1 are supposed to face each other. One of them happens to be Erica herself, someone who outshone Will's expectations. Apparently, she just caged herself in firewalls, intimidating everyone else from daring to approach her. Long story short, this girl didn't even move and won by default. But something feels off. Will doesn't think this is the full story. She asks him to go easy on her, but this man isn't a simp and intends to go all out. Erica expresses that she'll be aiming for a much higher evaluation after beating him, and so commences their epic showdown. Her first assault comes in the form of a searing fireball. Will contests this fire attack by blocking it head-on. It's a simple fire spell, nothing special about it. Even his healing magic can easily regenerate any injuries without trouble. This simple move makes him underestimate Erica until he notices something really bad. That same spell that hit him is more than just a simple attack, it's a trap. Erica continues her same assault, launching fireballs back to back. But something special about her flames is that they're not extinguishing at all. This woman learned Amaterasu from Itachi and copied his whole flow. Despite her low firepower, the duration is abnormal. Even if he maintains active recovery, repeated damage is going to hurt him. This observation checks out last time too, when he asked for her flame to cheat the basic offense magic exam. This also shows why she was unable to be approached by any of the contestants using her firewalls, because the flames would literally not go out. Erica's flames are a representation of her stubbornness, and her sudden skill exposure gains the attention of the crowd. To be honest, they just support her because they want to see our boy lose. An air of arrogance takes over her, the realization that she can make past both the preliminaries and even eliminate someone as powerful as Will. Formulating his counterattack, our boy casually kills the flames after doubling his healing output. She repeats the same move again, but Will is ready this time. Knowing that her flames won't fan out, he grabs it intentionally, boosting his personal offense instead. This is a genius use of battle IQ, because now the healer has fire fists aiding his offensive strikes. Erica is about to get blown away when she suddenly throws up hands and forfeits the match. Luckily, she comes out unscathed, the announcer declaring our boy the winner of the match. Unfortunately, his evaluation stats won't change much even after the match. The same crowd that supported Erica earlier now turns against her, calling her a fraud for an offensive mage. Poor girl has been a support all her life and crumbles under the weight of expectations. But her dear friend helps her up, emphasizing how well she fought. He even heals her wounds, gaining her affection. That sweet little romance is demolished when Professor Bode steps on stage, calling it the end of the line. Pointing his finger at the healer, he genuinely deems Will a piece of filth, and he's hella pissed that an offensive mage quit against someone like that. His words scare off poor Erica, leaving Will to wonder if this is appropriate behavior coming from an instructor. The supervisor boasts his position, emphasizing that his role is to call out the truth for what it is, something he deems encouraging. But as he leaves, he confirms to our boy that there's only going to be one successful candidate from the tournament. That man in question approaches the healer. It's the serious Sirius. The two of them share a brief interaction. Sirius doesn't even bother to look at him while talking. He is a sole believer in strength, and agrees with Instructor Bode's view of the world. The healer's okay with that, except the prodigy does have one last thing to admit. He genuinely acknowledges the healer for being strong, but at the same time, Sirius intends to prove his own philosophy correct by defeating him in their match. Let's zoom out on the prodigy's talents. Will recalls hearing his name in his past life, a guy with an insane level of offensive magic, someone whose winds are so strong, nothing and no one can stand in his way unless being reduced to ashes. The final match between Sirius and Will is about to commence. From the way things look, our boy understands that he'll only gain acknowledgement from the Academy if he defeats the prodigy here, so his goal is to win. The final match kicks off with Sirius releasing an overwhelming twister from where he stands. The attack takes too much space, forcing Will to evade cautiously. Retaliating with his own limit-breaking speed, Will propels with lightning-fast speed, approaching the prodigy with all he's got. But before he can narrow the distance, Sirius dispels an all-out wind attack, keeping him far away. This is a problem for the healer. He can't make a serious blow without getting close. The two forces of nature continue their showdown. Sirius and Will face each other, while Sirius notices his speed. He raises his hand to attack and throws a burst of intense wind directed at his opponent. Our boy realizes that the tornado from before was nothing like this wind, which manages to blow away the entire area. He struggles to stay on his feet, but it's now time to make its debut. He puts his hand on the ground and begins to grow a humongous tree, while Erica in the crowd is amazed by the ability of the healing magic, knowing he is strengthened. A while ago, our boy showed this skill to Professor Veronica and explained that he infused life energy into the plant, which helped it grow rapidly. He had learned beforehand about attack magic that could manipulate plants and decided to give it a try with this skill. He wanted to adapt his tactics accordingly. Suddenly, he begins to fall to the ground, and Professor Veronica holds him upright. He is surprised by the sudden mana exhaustion, since the book didn't clarify that it could be such a major technique. Veronica cracks the code, explaining that destroying is easier than healing because healing consumes far more mana than attack magic, and reproducing attack magic using healing magic is probably a most inefficient use of mana. Knowing the consequences of this skill, he plans to keep it for moments when it can be properly utilized. Coming back to the present, our guy uses this skill on the battlefield since his attack magic doesn't have much efficiency, so he decides to rely on this move. When the tree finishes growing, Sirius manages to cut it down with a wind blade attack. This throws our guy off, since Sirius's magic consists of tornadoes that can swallow enemies and storms that can blow away a wide area. His wind blades are meant for solid objects, while the tornado deals with anyone who approaches him by centering around him. Will realizes that Sirius is called the top candidate for a reason, but he has also aimed to make himself stronger using this magic and leaps in Sirius's direction. Instantly, the opponent forms a tornado around himself and belittles him, saying that he cannot reach him no matter what he does. And surely he wasn't wrong. As soon as our boy hits the tornado, he is thrown away. Sirius smiles, but suddenly he realizes something is very wrong. He looks at his shoulder and sees that it is pierced by a piece of wood. Confusion is clear on his face as he demands an explanation. Will confidently reveals his tactic. He knew that Sirius couldn't protect the ground beneath him. So, the plant underground sent its roots in every direction, and that's how he ended up with a stabbed shoulder. The protagonist wonders if he is worried about Professor Bode, as their personalities are wildly different from one another, while Sirius groans in pain. Sirius clarifies that the teacher instructs him because he is strong. Our boy throws more questions at him, knowing he is from a well-known family. Sirius spills the truth about his family. Magic ability matters above all else. The strongest person becomes the family head. No other factor like gender or age matters. This has created enemies within the family, all fighting for power, and his own father refuses to teach him. For Sirius, listening to the teacher is the only way for him to truly gain power and strength. Then, he gathers all his magic energy once again, which surprises the entire crowd, including our protagonist. A dragon is formed from the magic power, and Sirius declares that they will settle this now. The dragon aims at our guy, making him realize this is no child's play. A while ago, Will used to think that mages with offensive magic had it easier, which made him want to grind harder, but the entire time he was wrong. It struck him that talent isn't the only thing that determines superiority. Things like lineage, talent, and the past all play their part. All of this leads him to declare to Sirius that he wants to beat him in this fight. Sirius is baffled by the sudden announcement. Will throws his hand to the ground, preparing to use his special seed, and begins to grow a tree once again. Named Yggdrasil, the plant rapidly grows, consuming far more mana than the other plants. However, the upside is that it will continue to grow as long as our guy keeps pouring mana into it. Sirius attacks with a wind blade, which manages to cut the tree in half again, sending it flying into the sky. But when he looks up, the single branch that was flying has grown into a massive tree, and it is coming straight toward him. Meanwhile, Will assumes that because Sirius's magic is already being used to maintain the wind dragon, he won't have enough time to defend himself. The assumption turns out to be true, and the tree crashes down on Sirius. As he looks up, he sees Will standing with a knife pointed toward him. Contemplating, he realizes that he has lost. Will is announced as the winner. The crowd cheers since they didn't expect Sirius to lose, and they talk about the strength the protagonist possesses. Then, the hero offers his hand to help Sirius get back on his feet, praising his strength. But Sirius sounds defeated. Our boy tries to reassure him, admitting it was a good match. Suddenly, Professor Bode walks in, clearly disappointed in Sirius. With his strength, he kicks the tree off him and picks him up by the waist. He takes him away, furious that Sirius has failed him, declaring that his training will be started once again from scratch. The entire crowd falls silent, knowing how absolutely jarring this sounds. Bode turns to the crowd, screaming that this was meant for everyone. Infuriated, he can't bring himself to believe that a literal healer took first place. Will realizes that Bode's tantrum is getting out of hand. He begins to defend Sirius, saying that his strength was quite good, and that losing doesn't mean he is weak in any way. As he is about to further defend his opponent, Bode angrily shuts him up. Then Bode begins walking toward our guy, mocking his defensive statements for Sirius. He throws Sirius aside and calls our boy stupid, saying that in a match, only strength can yield optimal results. Engulfed by his emotions, he declares that losing makes one no better than discarded trash. Will is disturbed by Bode speaking so harshly about his own disciple. He begins to argue that being a healer doesn't give Bode the right to say whatever he wants. Bode's eyes flare with fury as he tries to demoralize our guy, saying that he will soon be thrown to the weak side because there is little value in being a healer. He further taunts him by pointing out the drastic depletion of his mana levels, which surprises our boy. Bode adds that weaklings are parasites who get stronger people killed. Being called dead weight sends our boy into a flashback of his past, where he was abused by Bode for not being strong enough. Even then, he tried to defend himself, insisting that healers support others with their magic. Yelling, he tried to prove his point, that the world needs healers to maintain balance, or else humanity will perish. Bode lets him go, and remembers how his disciple once stood on the front lines to buy time for the rear guard to escape, only to be wiped out by weak monsters at the escape point. His disciple died with nowhere left to go, and Bode watched helplessly, knowing he couldn't heal him. He clenches his fist and yells that Sirius shouldn't die for trash like that. From a practical standpoint, the professor isn't entirely wrong. If you are weak, you will die in the end no matter what, and people must train to survive. Still, there will come a time when monsters grow more violent, and when that happens, the strong cannot afford to be selfish. For moments like that, people without talent must know how to fight as well. Returning to the present, our guy challenges the professor to a duel, hoping it will make him acknowledge him. Bode scoffs and accepts the challenge, confident that there is no way a mere healer could win against him. Hearing this, the referee panics and asks if Bode is truly serious about the challenge. Bode proudly bends the rules to suit himself. With no way out, the referee carries Sirius away. A special match, Will versus Bode, is announced, and moments later, the match begins. Bode cracks his fingers, bragging that he will show just how weak our boy really is. With the amount of mana he has left, Will is worried about facing the strongest opponent he has faced in a while. He begins to plan carefully, because this isn't a normal duel. As he is about to start, Bode yells about how slow our guy is and unleashes his attack. The spark of the magic is enough to light up the entire ground. He then brags about teaching him the 3 reasons he is bound to win. A heavy amount of mana radiates as he gives the first reason, advantage in distance to suppress the enemy. The second reason is speed, which prevents them from taking action. The third reason is the power to finish them in a single blow. As Bode is about to continue, he mocks that the protagonist might not be able to hear him right now. Our guy rises once again, asking where the power that finishes in one blow is. Despite being visibly injured, our boy still stands, knowing that the professor possesses unique lightning magic. To save himself from electrical damage, he must somehow avoid a direct hit to the inside of his body. He is aware that his skills will be useless if his brain or heart are hit, as his healing magic won't be fast enough. For that specific reason, he created a blood circuit that could conduct electricity easily. He pierced his hand with his knife, so when the electricity hits the blade, it passes through his arm and legs, and is transmitted into the ground, minimizing the damage he receives. Even then, enduring electrical attacks is extremely difficult. Now it is time for our boy to launch a counterattack. Bode downplays him, saying he feels pity for him, knowing that he barely managed to endure the attack. Will then begins to enhance his body physically through magic, but suddenly realizes that he cannot pour strength into his body. Bode reveals that his violet lightning paralyzes its victim, making them unable to move. Will realizes that he might be in serious trouble and raises his hand again as another attack comes toward him. Egotistically, Bode wants to continue, using the remaining mana he has to see how many hits the protagonist can endure. Bode releases his attack, throwing the crowd into shock, while our boy continues to endure it, knowing that the professor truly has strong and flawless unique magic, which fuels his arrogance. But the protagonist refuses to give up. He decides that he will win, putting every bit of his remaining mana and stamina into manipulation. He slams his hand onto the ground and immediately begins growing a water treasure tree. This tree has the ability to absorb vast amounts of water from the ground and store it, so if used as a barrier, the electricity will be easily dispersed. However, fate has other plans. Bode manages to cut down the tree with his electrical attack, sending the crowd into shock. Our boy is left speechless as Bode begins walking toward him, believing the protagonist has nothing left. But as Bode looks at the fallen tree, he sees mushrooms rapidly begin to grow, which truly shocks him. Our boy feels a quiet sense of relief. His technique worked, as mushrooms grow quickly after a lightning strike. When a forest is turned into a wasteland by lightning, it creates an opportunity for growth without enemies, and mushrooms are among the first to appear. But that isn't the only advantage they bring. They also cause paralysis in the body, and Bode experiences it firsthand. He panics, and our guy seizes the opportunity, knowing that the advantageous distance between him and his opponent is finally gone. He charges his fist and throws it straight at Bode, but Bode manages to dodge it and attacks our boy straight in the gut. He reveals that he is also skilled in close combat, and that his unique magic allows him to manipulate electricity further. He states that if he reinforces his body with electricity to accelerate his movements, that paralyzing trick would be nothing in comparison. On the ground, clutching his chest, Will is unable to accept that he might not be able to win. Proudly, Bode charges his fist, declaring himself the victor of the duel. But before he can land the punch, someone stops him. Turning back, he sees Professor Veronica with her blade drawn. He tries to brush her off, saying that she shouldn't meddle as a newbie. Our boy shivers, yet a ray of hope rises when he sees Veronica. She argues that the result of the match is clear, and that further hitting the boy would only cause unnecessary pain. Bode tries to justify himself, claiming that Will is a healer and can simply heal himself. Veronica defends our guy, stating that he has no magic power left, as he poured everything into the duels he just fought. Angrily, Bode attempts to attack again, thinking Veronica simply lacks the courage to follow through. Veronica immediately charges her sword, and the two leap toward each other to strike. Suddenly, the headmaster appears, putting an end to the quarrel. He stands between them, preventing Bode from advancing, and apologizes to Veronica for not explaining the situation earlier. He announces the end of the selection exam and orders everyone to leave the premises. As the students begin to disperse, our guy tries to heal himself but fails, having completely run out of mana. Veronica lifts Will into her arms, assuring him that he performed well. She urges him to rest and not push his limits, but these assurances aren't enough for him. The next day, he walks through the school, thinking about the difference in power. It still baffles him how humanity could have ceased to exist even with such strong people around, and so he resolves to gain more and more strength. Will enters the room, and the headmaster is delighted to see him, noticing that his injuries have healed considerably. Our boy explains that once his mana returned, the healing was nearly instant. The headmaster assumes that will have no trouble with field training, which surprises the protagonist. He then continues, explaining that since Will took first place in the selection, he passed. Along with him, Sirius and Erica have also passed. Will demands an explanation, as Bode previously stated that everyone had failed. The headmaster explains that this happens every year to make the students believe they are in a crisis, drawing out their seriousness, though some are ultimately cleared. Since field training carries great danger, Bode had to put on an act as a teacher, and while harsh, it served its purpose. In his previous life, Bode was constantly on the front lines for humanity and was one of the heroes who tried to save humanity from extinction. The headmaster then urges the protagonist to form a party with students from other schools as an attacker so he can accept real monster subjugation requests. This makes Will realize that this will be the first time he faces monsters, the same monsters that were the direct cause of humanity's extinction in his past life. Creatures that possess magical power are known as monsters, but not all monsters are inherently threatening to humanity. Some may attack humans, but often only for the sake of their own survival. If their ecological behavior had been properly studied, they could have been utilized as neighboring species rather than treated as enemies. However, 2 years from now, the world is destined to change under the influence of the Red Moon. Monsters exposed to the Red Moon will become ferocious, and different species of supermonsters will begin to unite with a single goal: to wipe out humanity entirely. Then, 2 years after that catastrophe, the Demon King himself will descend upon the world. This sequence of events will place humanity at a complete disadvantage, causing nations to collapse and countless people to perish. Attack mages will be demanded on the battlefield, but because the situation will be uncontrollable, they will continue to lose their lives alongside the knights. Even healing mages will be slaughtered once the front lines fall, leaving no support for the wounded. By the time the protagonist dies in his previous life, barely any humans remain who are capable of fighting. If people continue living without changing anything, humanity will no longer be able to survive. He cannot allow such a tragedy to happen again. He vows to strengthen himself beyond anyone in his previous life so that he can resist the great monster invasion. More than that, he wants to uncover the true cause behind the Red Moon that drove the monsters into madness, hoping to eliminate the source of the calamity itself. The headmaster notices the determination reflected in his eyes and is deeply impressed. He finds Will's behavior promising and wonders whether the teachers are being cautious enough regarding the upcoming field training. The headmaster assures him that proper measures are in place, yet he makes it clear that he especially wants to encourage Will's growth. Later, while standing outside the campus with Veronica, Bode approaches the protagonist. As Will attempts to show that he understands the reason behind Bode's behavior, Bode once again yells at him and walks away. Still, before leaving, he tells Will to do his best during the training. Then, just as he turns away, he quietly thanks him for treating Sirius. Sirius, who had been standing behind him, also steps forward and thanks Will. He says that now he can work on his weaknesses and become stronger than ever. As long as he survives, he knows he can eventually get his revenge, and this time it will not disappear into smoke. The protagonist urges him to become even stronger, and the two of them bump their fists together in silent agreement. To Will, it feels like an advantage that more skilled attack mages are beginning to appear, as they will be invaluable allies in the upcoming battles against the monsters. Soon after, they depart in a carriage. After some time passes, they are informed that the Dunkel Forest is approaching and that the training details will be reviewed shortly. Veronica explains that they will be fighting goblins as part of a requested mission within the Dunkel Forest. She proceeds to guide 3 students from Schwartz, Heilich, and Gilburn. Then she turns to Will, informing him that he will be forming a 4-person party, supported by a teacher from one of the academies. Erica asks whether the party members have already been decided, and Veronica reassures her that she will be in the same party as her. Even though Erica finds Veronica intimidating, she still considers it far better than being paired with a complete stranger. After some time, they are informed that they have arrived. As they step out of the carriage, Veronica notices that the students from Gilburn have already reached the area. The protagonist reflects that, in his previous life, he did not have many acquaintances or connections. Suddenly, a girl rushes up to Will and hugs him tightly, exclaiming that she has been dying to meet him. The protagonist panics, completely confused about who she might be. She quickly introduces herself as Marie Goldgrand, the principal of Schwartz Academia and the granddaughter of Alnaram Goldgrand. The hero is left utterly stunned by her introduction, as he vividly remembers her from his past life. He never expected to meet the girl he had once treated at the principal's house, especially not here in the forest. Seeing her again makes him wonder how she's been doing, and she quickly reassures him that she has been doing just fine. Almost immediately, she begins apologizing, saying that she was never able to properly thank him back then. He brushes it off casually, telling her it was nothing, but she insists that she wants to repay the favor by doing something for him. She then explains that she had no talent for magic at all, so instead she enrolled in Gilburn Academy and devoted herself to learning swordsmanship. Because of her relentless effort, she ended up becoming the top-ranked student in the Academy's selection exam. She giggles when she notices how impressed the protagonist looks. He is genuinely moved by her achievement, because only a few months ago she had been bedridden, and yet in such a short span of time, she managed to reach the very top. Taking his hand, she tells him that they have been placed in the same party because of their respective talents, and that she will do her best to prove herself useful to him. At that moment, he finally realizes what the principal truly meant when he spoke about taking care of her. Before he can dwell on it any longer, she suddenly drags him along to greet the students who have just arrived from Heilich. Watching from the side, Veronica and Erica are surprised by how cheerful and friendly the two of them seem together. Outside the carriage from Heilich, Marie asks whether Ullin and Turf are inside. Ullin soon begins to step out, calmly saying that there is no need to rush. He cheerfully greets everyone, revealing himself as the teacher assigned to their party. Ullin is a teacher at Heilich Academia, and in Will's previous life, Ullin had been the greatest healing mage of his era. Realizing that he is now in the same party as him fills Will with genuine happiness. After that, Turf steps out of the carriage as well, and Marie introduces herself to him. However, Turf freezes when he notices the two of them holding hands. Naturally, he asks for an introduction to the protagonist. Will introduces himself, and Turf quickly assumes that he must be an attack mage. Ullin then tells the students that they are free to do whatever they want, and that he will simply keep an eye on them. This casual attitude surprises all of the students. Will walks over to Ullin and asks if he may call him Master. Ullin asks why, and Will explains that he himself uses healing magic, but has never had a proper teacher to help him practice and refine it. He then asks if Ullin would be willing to teach him. Ullin says that he has heard about Will before, and readily agrees to teach him some healing magic. Marie rushes after them, insisting that she should be allowed to call Ullin Master as well if Will is going to do so. From the side, Veronica observes how well the party seems to be getting along. Later, when the subjugation mission is assigned, each party is instructed to operate using a hut as their base. The area where goblins have been reported lies deep within the forest, so Ullin, Marie, and Will decide to head there immediately. Meanwhile, Turf, the healing mage, is instructed to stay behind at the base, avoiding the front lines in accordance with traditional protocol. As they walk toward the goblin spawning area, Marie asks whether Will is really only going to act as a healing mage on the front lines. He responds calmly, telling her not to worry about him. He explains that he will act as the group's supervisor instead, allowing them to fight freely while he keeps a close eye on everything. Taking his words seriously, the two of them accept that the supervisor has no strict rules. They immediately begin hunting the goblins. In a single swift motion, Marie cuts down a large group of goblins all at once. The protagonist can hardly believe what he is seeing, remembering that only a few months ago she had been completely bedridden.